Good
Hello,
evening.
hello, folks. Tonight we're looking at Icehouse, and we have Brandon Borrell, our newest member from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, for a little while longer, and John Sharon from Indiana, and Eric Fraunfelter from Massachusetts, and me,
Greetings.
Ronald, or Jay, as some people say, Terrio from Laplace, Louisiana, but I was born in Baton Rouge. Anyway, I'm going to say a little bit about Icehouse, and then I'm going to shoot it off, shoot to each person. Icehouse was introduced in 1993, okay? It was the first American brewed ice lager beer, and it started the whole ice beer craze, which everybody wanted to start an ice beer brand, and then that kind of died out, but there's still a pretty strong following, and there's still some strong ice beer brands that retain popularity. It's 5.5% alcohol, as a matter of to let you know that. Now, Brandon, you were telling us that you, in fact, have never had Ice House,
I never have. This will be my first time.
and you don't know much about it. You said.
I don't know much about it. I just know it's started the ice beer craze, but I've never had it.
Well, that's cool. Well, Eric, you were going to give us some info, and I'm going to crack mine open. We can crack it
Okay.
open and start consuming the stuff.
Sure.
I,
Well,
I
while we
have
do
I
that,
have an 18-ounce bottle, by the way, 18-ounce bottle.
24-ounce can.
I got a 24-ounce can.
Cool.
Mine made some nice smoke. Okay.
It makes an insane amount of white head.
In a narrow brim glass. Yeah, I have a wide brim chalice, so it won't make a lot of head.
Gotcha.
Eric, you're going to give us some info.
Um, if anybody knows anything about Icehouse, they are owned by it's a Miller brand, and they like to use this mantra of it being from the Plank Road Brewery, which is just another part of the Miller company itself.
Correct.
It looks like the Plank Road Brewery was started by a gentleman named Frederick Charles Best, and he abandoned the Plank Road Brewery in 1854. And the Plank Road Brewery, if you even look at the bottles, it looks like an old Victorian house. This guy that is Miller, that we know of the company now, his name is Frederick Miller. Apparently, he bought the Plank Road Brewery for $8,000 over a 5-year period, and he began selling beers about $5 a barrel in the Milwaukee area in the taverns, and then it became the Milwaukee Brewery as they increased their sales and their production, and it has now been what we know of it today.
Right. One of the biggest brewing companies on the planet. Now, John, you were going to give us
in America.
the second biggest in America. Yeah. John?
I've got here Icehouse and Miller Coors Brewing Company is an American-style light, low-calorie lager. Miller Brewing Company has given Icehouse the following description: America's first domestic ice beer. Icehouse is traditionally brewed, fermented just before aging, and temperature is lower to below freezing. So
Right.
that's about it.
They take a beer, and it could be, they could take Miller High Life for all we know, right? And they
They
freeze
made
it.
an ice beer, didn't they?
Yeah, but that didn't catch on too well. They even made a Miller Lite Ice, but the original was Ice House. So and they freeze the beer, and when it starts forming ice crystals at the top, they skim off the ice crystals so that you get a more concentrated, higher alcohol beer. So you're going Miller High Life 4.7% up to 5.5, so it does strengthen the beer. Now. My beer here, the one I poured, is straight up gold. It's not yellow gold. It's straight up gold with bubbles, man.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think I've showed this glass before. It has an etching, and it's a Miller Lite glass. It's got an etching at the bottom of it. It's definitely pretty effervescent, and I would say golden is a really good description on that color, yes.
Yeah.
Any
I have
other
mine in a Sam Adams glass, so I've got a pretty good head on it.
Oh yeah, you have beautiful thick white head. Brandon, you got it in a good old mug,
Mm-hmm.
and you're looking at gold too, huh?
Same thing. Very effervescent. Lots of bubbles. Well carbonated.
Now, you know, if you get on Beer Advocate, they say it's awful. And Rate Beer says it's a 0 out of 100. Or it might have been a 1, but I think it was a 0. Now, on the other hand, at the Great American Beer Festival and the World Beer Cup, since the beer has debuted, it has won 1, 2, 3 bronze medals, 1, 2, 3, 3 silver medals, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gold medals as recently as 2 years ago. So, no, I'm sorry, it won a silver medal just this year at the World Beer Cup. So there's some kind of disassociation there. It's like some people are telling us it's one of the worst beers ever made, right? That would a 0 would be one of the worst beers on the earth, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But on the other hand, it's won multiple medals for the last 21 years. So how do you explain that?
Well, it's being rated in a class that deserves to be rated in. It's not out there in some other class that's far from what this beer is.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about that before. The World Beer Cup's taken light beers, and they're rating all the light beers together. They're taking Imperial Stouts, and they're rating all of them together, and they're taking American Ice beers, and they're rating all of them together.
What are they, do they call this a do they consider this a specialty lager? Is that what they would call this?
You know, they sort of changed the categories over the years, and like they'll say American Cream Ale, or they'll say a specialty lager, or I don't know, ice beer. What, you know, it's but like John's saying, they're scoring this against other beers of its ilk.
Right.
In a blind test, right?
Huh?
In a blind test, right?
In a blind taste test, they don't know which one they're sipping on. And you know, on Rate Beer, and I'm not ripping on Rate Beer because I read it all the time, you know, in Beer Advocate, I got to admit. But they'll say, well, I just drank Heady Topper, and it was a lot different than this darn Icehouse. Well, hell, if I drove a Cadillac, it'd be a lot different than a Chevy Cobalt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean a Cobalt is bad. I mean, unless you leave the keychain in there and it'll shut off. But you know, the recall. Actually, my daughter has a Cobalt, and she's had a lot of success with it so far. But you know what I mean? It's you don't compare a Mercedes-Benz with a Dodge a minivan, you know.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yep.
Well,
Absolutely.
I think we've made that point, and a lot of people are waking up to that. I've noticed they're saying, "Wait a minute, this stuff ain't awful." Well, what do you think? But I mean, if you think it's awful, that's cool too. I mean, no one is obligated to like anything we examine on these examinations. I think some people are reluctant to come on here because they think that for some reason they have to like the beer or whatever, but that is not the case. We're simply examining the beer. We're looking at it and talking about it and giving an assessment of it, not necessarily a rating. But we want to go with Brandon first because he's our newest participant. So what do you think about Icehouse, Brandon?
I mean, for what it is, it's pretty good. I think it's a pretty good beer. I mean, I don't really see the low ratings. Even on Untappd does not have it as low as Rate Beer. Untappd has it as a 2 out of 5. So Untappd drinkers are bigger sample and not just people who use Rate Beer or Beer Advocate. So take that for what you will. But still, I think it's a pretty good beer. I mean, like I said, for me, it's just I'm reminded of Miller High Life. Similar types of flavors and stuff like that. Similar type of beer, only it's more concentrated because it's an ice beer.
Yeah, that's making me think that they might possibly just be taking Miller High Life and putting it through the ice beer process, which I'd have no problem with that, you know. What about you, Eric? What's your general opinion of ice beer?
It's kind of, and maybe it's it being 5.5% here. It's kind of reminding me of a malt liquor in the sense of it's got a lot of that upfront sweetness in it.
Yeah, and I think
a lot of upfront sweetness in that sort of that. I guess it's the yellow corn grit that Miller uses, and it does have that cooked veggie taste.
Which you get in Miller High Life.
But it's definitely got a upfront sweetness that reminds me a lot of, say, something like Old English maybe, or private stock to a certain extent.
Yeah, I find private stock is a lot gamier, if you want to use that term, and I think private stock is a little richer. But I know what you're saying. It's kind of heading toward that direction.
You know, that reminds me quickly. It definitely is a richer beer than what we were just talking about, like not Budweiser, like a Miller High Life. It's definitely got a richer texture, and has a little bit more of a bite to it as well.
I think it'd be very interesting to maybe search this in detail to see if this is a Miller High Life that's iced down.
I bet you Miller would never tell you.
If you get to the same grainy, corny, and rice that you get in the Miller High Life itself.
It does have a slight at the back end now. At the back end of the sip, it does have a little hop bitterness. You know what I mean? It's like it's little. It's low profile, but it's there. You know what I mean? It's typical for a lager.
It's like a wet graininess kind of a bitterness to it almost. I guess like a stale grain almost to the bitterness.
Yeah, I know the ingredients must be water, barley malt. I'm sure it's yellow corn grits, water, and yeast. But you know that doesn't really tell you a whole lot. Anyway, I'm enjoying it, but that's me. You know, you got to consider the source. I'm not the pickiest person in the world when it comes to beer, and I think everybody knows that. And some people pick on me for it, but I mean, I don't have any mind to come on here and lie about stuff or try to build credibility. You know.
It just reminds me so much of like a malt liquor. It's crazy, even with the 5.5%. And there are malt liquors out there that are 5.5%, and they're not calling them ice beers. So it makes me wonder if how really similar or different an ice lager is from a malt liquor beer.
Because the malt liquors are not using the ice beer process.
They use more like a sugar, right?
Yeah, let's look at a malt liquor like Magnum or Mickey's 5.6, and we just looked at Mickey's Monday night, me and John, or John and I. Now Mickey's, they might use more corn, they might use more barley. I think what they do is they like put extra barley, extra corn, and they get like like you're saying, Eric, it forms more sugars, right? It turns, and then the sugars make a higher alcohol. So yeah.
Because you notice when you drink like I had a Roquefort 10 with a steak tonight, you notice that with a higher ABV beer, you notice a discernible more of a sugary taste as the alcohol content seems to climb in the beer. You seem to notice that in the taste.
Yeah.
That's why I say that with Icehouse.
Now I have a neighbor across the street, and I buy her beers sometimes, and I bought her a 12-pack of Icehouse, 12-ounce bottles, and I asked her, I said, "How you enjoying that Icehouse?" And she said, "Oh, I'm enjoying it." She said, "But it's really strong. It's strong." I said, "Oh, is it too strong? She said, "Oh no, I'm drinking it." She likes it, but she did like that it had a strong flavor, you know. John,
I don't really get the overwhelmingly strong flavor. I mean, considering most of them's a little over 5% anyways, but I think it's the ice brewed below the zero. It's kind of what the flavor is.
Yeah, it's just more concentrated. Brandon, what is your general opinion of the beer? Now, he said he thought it was better than... No, wait. Let's see. Brandon said it was... for what it was. Yeah, that's what you said. For what it was, you thought it was all right. The way we always look at it, we say, would you buy it again, you know, or would it be something you'd drink every now and then, whatever?
Yeah, sure. I would. I mean, I have no problem drinking it every now and again. So, I mean, it's pretty good beer for the style, and the price is generally pretty good, so why not?
Yeah, that's my opinion. Icehouse, for me, and it has been this way since I started drinking beer, is sort of a standby beer. It's sort of like the thing that I have in the fridge in volume, and I just pull it out the fridge when I want something cold and easy to drink. Plus, I can go to Walmart and get a 12-pack for $6.99.
Can't beat that.
Yeah,
you probably could, but that's a good deal.
Yeah, so it's not And I talked to Maria Devon, and she's going to join us, I think, for Guinness. But I talked to her, and we kind of agreed that there's two main types of beers. There's contemplative beers. That's ones like, Sierra Nevada Christmas beer or something that you think about. When you drink it, you really want to think about it. And then there's drinking beers like this that you don't really want to think about. You're just drinking it, man.
Right, absolutely.
But what's your overall opinion, Eric and John?
Go ahead, John.
Well, it's like we got to convert back to the old beer whisperer. There's not 20 things you can say about this beer, but there's two good things you can say about it. It's good and it's cheap. Mm-hmm. And it's a go-to beer, and it's been around since '93, won several medals. I mean, how could you go wrong?
You're right,
and it's consistent. It's consistent every time you drink it.
And it's got that Best By date on the bottle, which is what we always complain about some beers not having.
Mm-hmm.
September 9th, 2014. Very nice.
Mine's September 15th of 2014. So
not bad. All right, we're close.
October 6th over here.
You got the
that's a little older version.
He's got the freshest one.
Yeah.
Oh, October.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it. I get how you're working with that now. My opinion is, now I've had Bud Ice before, and we did natural ice. I think with a lot of these beers, even if they're not ice beers in general, I think with a lot of these beers, and Jay knows this one from doing the blind taste tests, almost a lot of these beers have sort of very similar, these lagers, these American lagers, they're very similar in their flavor, so it's almost like it comes down to almost a price point value. If this is what you want to buy, because you want to buy it, sure, but I would almost say whatever is your good value at your local store, go ahead and buy that. There's no real reason I would or would not buy this beer. There's nothing that screams out to me and says, I must buy Icehouse over natural ice. I must do that. Nothing that screams out to me that says to do that, but I'd buy it again, absolutely.
Right, and I usually buy natural ice just because I'm getting 5.9 as opposed to 5.5, right? So why not get a little bit more punch? But
the only weird thing, before I let you continue here, the only weird thing in this flavor, I really do notice, I don't know if it's like it's sugary, a little bit, has a little bit of a sweeter taste, or if it's like a cooked vegetable or something. But there's one really this discerning flavor to this beer, and I'm not sure which one it really is.
Yeah, that's sort of like a Miller thing, I believe. That I've been saying that for years, that cooked vegetable thing.
That's kind of what I'm getting out of this beer.
I don't find that you get that with the Anheuser-Busch beers. But then Anheuser-Busch beers, I know people say it gives them a dirty hangover, and I think that's coming from the yeast, which doesn't agree with a lot of people.
Yeah, you're right. I do know a bunch of people that just, for whatever reason, they like PBR and they like Miller High Life, but they will just not touch Budweiser beers for that very reason. I don't get that.
Yeah, I think the yeast gives them a dirty hangover. I never had a problem with it, but I know other people that say it just tears them up, But I always say in my mind, I say to myself, oh, I know I could tell this apart from natural ice. I remember what they taste like. But then when I do the blind taste test, I can't tell them apart.
Right.
So it's like you think you can tell them apart, but you can't really tell them apart.
I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy another one of these, and I'm going to buy a Miller champagne of beers, and I'm going to sit them down in a blind taste test and see if I can pick which one it is.
I got to hope you could do that successfully. I got to hope so.
You ought to take a Miller High Life and freeze it and take the water off the top.
Yeah.
And drink
it. Make your own ice beer. Interesting idea.
Yeah. Well, I got no problem with this beer. I mean, I've been drinking it for so long. I mean, I'm cool with it, but that's my opinion. I'm cool with it.
It's definitely a unique tasting lager beer from America, unlike a lot of different beers in this country, which is, I guess, props to the beer.
Yeah, and like John said, and I like what John said, it's consistent. You get an Icehouse anywhere in the world, which is probably going to be just America, it's going to always taste the same.
Yeah. And, I can remember drinking these in '93 when they first come out. I mean, this was to me, this right here, really, if you get right down to it, was one of the very first probably craft beer type beers to really be out in the public.
You mean kind of an unusual type thing?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I wish the Beer Whisperer was here, because remember, he would always bring up the point that when Red Dog and Icehouse first came out, '93 and '94, they were sold at the premium, above premium level. They were, pretty expensive beers, up there with Michelob and those type of things. But whatever reason, Miller decided to drop them down to the economy level.
Right.
Probably because they could sell a heck of a lot more of them. So I got no problem with it, and I don't find that it's changed in quality at all.
No, it hasn't.
And just to reiterate, if people don't know that already, Icehouse and Red Dog, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Southpaw was all a part of this thing in the '90s called the Plank Road Brewery, which is really a different name for these beers under the Miller Brewing Company themselves.
Correct. And I never did get to try Southpaw, but
Never
either.
I don't know how that was a light beer. It was 147 calories. I don't know what was light about it, but I saw it one time in a store, and I said, I'm not paying for a 12-pack. And then I said, I'll just buy it another time. And then about 6 months later, it was discontinued. And John has brought this point up again. If we don't look at these beers, we might turn around tomorrow and notice that they've been yanked off the market, because you never know what's going to happen. Now,
They're becoming harder and harder.
It's going to be harder and harder to find them, you're right, if that's what you were trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Icehouse is still common, but it's not as common as it used to be.
I was going to kind of ask about that. Do people seem to find this beer on tap at places? I've never seen it on tap at all.
Never.
I've never seen it on tap.
Just like you never see a bar having a nice tall boy of whatever it is, like a nice tall boy of
Red
steel
Dog
reserve in the back of their refrigerator.
I've never
seen
been
that
to a
either.
bar and seen Red Dog. I've never been to a bar and
I've
seen.
never seen.
Yeah, but I saw Mick. I know a place where you can go get Mickey's now. I told John that you can go to Hurricanes in Metairie, which is a pretty nice bar, by the way. It's not a dive bar. You can get Mickey's, but
Recharge.
y'all are aware of the Icehouse Edge, right?
Yeah, I've had that before.
Yeah.
And that's when you really want to
Never
get
had that.
That's really a malt liquor.
Oh, 8.1% alcohol. That'll you up.
Woo!
I'm gonna stop and buy one tomorrow.
Let me tell you what. That's for the adventurous Icehouse drinker. That beer, anybody ever had Icehouse Edge? I've had it.
Yeah, I believe I have had that. Although I could be confusing that beer with Natural Father, Natty Daddy.
Yeah, Natty Daddy is the original one, and I believe they came out with the Icehouse Edge to compete with it. Those beers are just basically alcohol injection. You know what I mean?
For people that don't like the taste of alcohol, but they want to get all of the benefits from it.
Oh, it'll rock your world. It will rock your world.
It won't be a hurricane of flavor, but it'll get you the job done. Hurricane of flavor.
I'm the first one to admit that Icehouse Edge and Natty Daddy are too strong for me, but it's not their fault. It's my fault. I'm too weak. That doesn't mean the beers are bad. That's my little weak tail, you know. But anyway, let's just sum it up. We're going to end it because we could go on and on. My general opinion is I like Icehouse. I'm glad they make it. I like the price. I drink it pretty frequently, and I would buy it again. End of the story. Brandon?
I would agree. I definitely would buy this beer again. I'm glad I have a 12. Glad I bought a 12-pack today because I'll probably have another after this is all said and done.
Oh, you got the 12-ounce bottles or the cans?
Yeah. 12-ounce bottles.
Oh, good. Excellent. What did you pay for that?
$6.99 at Walmart.
Awesome. Eric?
I think just due to price alone, if I wanted a nice beer, I might actually choose the Natural Light. But in saying all of that, for $1.45 a tall boy can, you cannot go wrong with this. I mean, there will be some people that find the beer to have a little bit of a stronger, like, sweetness taste or a stronger like a cooked vegetable kind of a taste. But if none of that stuff bothers you, this is a good beer to go with, and it's 5.5 more than Budweiser, so it gets the job done for a cheaper price.
Definitely, John.
Well, I'm going to tell you, for the age I am and for knowing this beer, I drank this beer when it first come out. I drink it on a regular occasion. I'm going to continue to buy it for the price. You can't beat beer.
No, I mean,
you know.
yeah, it's definitely a winner. I think they did a great job with it. I don't think there's anything bad about it, really. I don't see how people could drink it and say, oh, that tastes bad. I don't get that. I just don't get it. I mean, I can understand if they said it tastes ordinary or dull, but I don't even, but
It's none of those two things you just named at all.
no, and I don't know where this 0 out of 100 is coming from. That's beyond the pale. That's silly for me. That's just stupidity. But
To each their own, and that is why we do this.
it ain't that serious and it ain't that important. Getting together and talking about beer is not that important. But
what does Dave say that's not here right now? He says he finally has said it now. Life's too short to get angry over a beer.
yeah, it's like, what's the point of getting mad over beverages? I don't get that. But some people take it pretty seriously. You know how that goes. But I don't. I do not. I don't. I drink beer. I like beer. I enjoy beer. End of the story.
Amen, brother.
But what we are doing is we are examining a beer, not a craft beer, but a beer that's been around since 1993. What I call the legacy type beers that if you don't drink them today, they may be gone tomorrow. And we're drinking beer for what they are, not what somebody wants us to do.
Right.
And that's what puts us aside from anybody else on YouTube, Facebook, Google Plus, or whatever.
And in case anybody's misunderstanding anything, none of us on this panel have any negative issue with craft beer. We drink craft beer all the time, so
Amen.
I don't want anybody to interpret that in the wrong way. But we're not picking teams, you know what I mean? We're not over here to pick teams. The only team we're on is the beer team, you know what I mean?
All beers bring their own unique whatever to the table, and we can enjoy all kinds of beers for various types of reasons. And if you don't enjoy beers that we are drinking that we seem to enjoy, that is perfectly fine and perfectly valid for you to do that. That's
right.
what it's about.
All beers are good to some extent, except for Earthquake High Gravity 12%, which is objectively bad. I don't know anybody on planet Earth that thinks that beer is good. But that's a different story.
You toy with me on that one, and I saw that video. You toy with me every day when I hear that.
I'm gonna tell you this before we get off here. I had an opportunity about 4 months ago to drink a Brewdog Tactical Nuclear Penguin.
Wow.
Now that was an ice beer that everybody should drink one time.
That's a legit ice beer.
Yes, it is.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like drinking everything, because it's like an adventure, you know what I mean? So
I don't like drinking the same thing twice when it comes to a lot of beers. I want to try something, sometimes twice, 3 times, just to make sure I got the right taste buds down in it. But I like trying all beers. I'm not a beer snob.
no, neither me, and I don't think y'all are, because if you were a beer snob, we wouldn't be.
One touch us with a 10-foot pole.
Never. Well, anyway, I appreciate everybody joining us. Brandon, we really do welcome you, and we want you to join us again if you'd like to, because we really would enjoy it, I think.
Thanks for showing up.
I know we would. We hope you enjoyed it tonight.
I did.
I hope you can join us next Wednesday night.
Real beer, Guinness.
Next Wednesday night, we're looking at Guinness Draft, the very famous and mass-produced Guinness Draft.